WNST alive here, and the Orioles have a real executive vice president and general manager at this point, and dogs and cats might fly, Luke Jones, but I'll tell you what, Lamar Jackson running around is giving a lot of fans a lot of buzz and a lot of things to talk about. The one thing that is said about it's not a really pretty offense, is it?
It's not, and I'm not sure I'd say it's not pretty, it's just not what we're used to seeing. Let's face it, when you can run the football for 265 yards, I think many, many head coaches, including those who love to throw the football, they take that if it's going to be productive, if you're going to be able to move the ball. And I know the Bengals came into the game with the worst defense in the NFL. They've been an utter disaster for the last month. It's why they replaced their defensive coordinator. It's why Marvin Lewis is calling defensive plays again for the first time in forever. But at the same time, I can't be completely dismissive of what they did. For me, Nestor, it feels like what happens when a couple years back when the Orioles would hit 6 or 7 home runs in a game. You'll take it gladly. Most of the time you're going to win under that scenario, and you won't apologize for it, but what do we always say about that? Well, you can't really expect to hit 6 home runs.
You got to have pitching. You got to have pitching.
Right. You need a little more balance, right? Yeah. So that's what it kind of feels like for me when you see that. But it's also the formula that worked for Sunday. When you're talking about a defense that was giving up 5 yards per carry, and you're talking about a rookie quarterback that was making his first NFL start. That's not to say that Lamar Jackson can't make more plays in the passing game if that's what the game plan calls for. And certainly you're not going to look at that formula and say, well, this is the blueprint now, right? Having our starting quarterback throw or run the ball 27 times. No one's going to say that because that's going to be a ticking time bomb in that way. But I think it's realistic to think that Lamar Jackson's going to run, even when he gets to be the best possible passer that he's going to become next year, the year after that, wherever it might be, he's still going to be someone who takes off and runs 10, maybe 15 times.
Yeah, I was going to say 15. I put the over-under at 12. If there is a game that he quarterbacks for 4 quarters and doesn't run the ball 12 times, I'll be shocked. And all of that being said, how many of those 12 times is he going to run the contact? How many times is he going to turtle up?
Right.
How many times is he going to run out of bounds? How long can they do this? Okay, he's a fine quarterback. For how long? 3 years, 4 years, 5? It's not going to be. Joe Flacco came in an 8, right? And it's 18 at the end, and we're bidding him adieu. The notion that Lamar Jackson will still be doing this in 2028 means that they might be playing flag football by then.
Well, or he really develops into the pocket passer that he'll need to have a long career.
And then you mean start running it less than 12 times a game?
Sure. He'd run it 7 or 8 times, or 9 times, or 10 times. But keep in mind, we all also say the same thing in games where Joe Flacco has thrown 50 times and they've won. What do we always say? This isn't the formula. If Joe's going to throw it 50 times over the long haul, that's not going to work out. And we've seen that. We saw that this year, where early in the season he was throwing a lot. They were scoring. But what were we saying constantly, Nestor? That they need to get a running game going. They need to be able to be more productive on the ground because Flacco is not one of those very rare quarterbacks that can throw it 45, 50 times per game consistently and be successful. So now I'll flip this around and say, naturally, if Lamar Jackson's going to be throwing or running upwards of 20-plus times, that's a dangerous formula. And I think teams will adapt to that to the point where, not that he won't get any yardage, but he's not going to be gaining over 100 yards per game. And you saw that with Michael Vick, and you saw that with other rushing quarterbacks over the years, and then guys either getting hurt or teams really bottling them up and making them stay in the pocket and forcing you to beat them with their arms. So I think that's going to be the big question, not just against the Oakland Raiders, as it sounds like Flacco's probably not going to be ready for Week 12, but in the big picture, however much more Jackson plays this year, and certainly moving forward, as I think it's clear that the Ravens envision this guy to be the quarterback of the future, and probably starting next year, if I had to guess at this point. So
Well, it's also a financial issue, right? It's not, would Joe be the better quarterback this year or next year? Joe makes 25. We drafted this kid. Let's put some money into a linebacker and put some money into a wide receiver. I don't know what they're going to sign in the offseason. We're a long way away from that, but we're not, right? Like, we're one loss away from what do they need to get better, which we'll be talking about that with the Orioles, which is just about everything with the Orioles. But with the Ravens, this whole offseason and how week to week, every victory, every kick save, every time they can get on a plane and go to Atlanta and play a meaningful game, and then Kansas City after that, if they can keep this going, it's one more week we're not talking about, well, what happens to Suggs and Yonda and Weddle and Flacco and Cook and anybody else that might be deemed expensive around there or old, right?
Right. And that's what makes this time so awkward. I mean, I think there was excitement, and I think there was an excitement in the stadium watching Jackson because it was new and because it is exciting to see a quarterback take off and be able to run for over 100 yards in a game and do the things he can do with his legs. The question will be, can he do exciting things with his arm? And based on what he did at Louisville, I have belief that he can one day. The question is, can he do enough of that to warrant him holding on to this job? It's like I said to you in one of our previous conversations. I saw enough from him to want to see a little more of him, with the caveat that Flacco's not healthy yet. Once Flacco's healthy, then let's see where Lamar Jackson is at that point. If he goes out and throws for 210 yards against the Raiders and runs for 50, and the Ravens put up 30 points, then I think we're having a much different conversation. Not to say the Raiders are a great litmus test per se, but maybe you've really felt that you've sparked your offense and you've built some momentum.
Hey, the Raiders won on Sunday. I sat and watched it with my own eyes.
Yeah, right. So, I mean, not that there should be any concern no matter who the quarterback is. You should beat this team, period, especially playing at home. But
it's one thing if the Bengals come in and wreck your season. You don't want the Raiders doing it this week, right?
Right. And I don't expect that. Short of Lamar Jackson going out there and throwing 4 picks or fumbling 2 or 3 times, I'd really have a difficult time envisioning that. I mean, the Raiders are awful. Win or not on Sunday, they're awful.
Khalil Mack's pretty good, though. I saw that Sunday night.
Yeah, he's pretty good for the Chicago Bears. So as far as the whole question, Jackson or Flacco right now, it's a moot point until Joe's healthy, because I think we've all seen Flacco play at less than 100% over the last couple years at various times, and it hasn't been pretty. So if you can play Jackson in the meantime, and you can be productive, and I want to caution everyone, they ran for 265 yards, but that's a terrible defense they did play, and they scored 24 points. It's not as though it was an offensive explosion in terms of points. It was enough. They got the job done. They win, or they played the way they needed to, or the way they felt they needed to, but that's also understood that can't be sustained with that exact formula, but I think they understand that, and I'm not going to sit here and say that Lamar Jackson can't throw the ball a little bit more than he did on Sunday. And if he can, and they're more productive against Oakland, and there's more balance, and they make more plays, and let's say they hang 30, 35 points on the board, then I think it's a more interesting discussion moving forward after that. But if it's another case where we're seeing him drop down and throw sidearm and looking uncomfortable like he did at times, and made the interception, of course, if you see more of that kind of stuff, then I think they'll be a little more inclined to go back to Flacco, especially knowing how many games you have on the road and against some good offenses, and saying, okay, we may not have a great chance to win either one of those games, but we think we have a better chance to win playing the way we do with Flacco behind center. So it's tough. It's definitely awkward, and I think there's absolutely a big picture argument to say, well, do you feel that great about your playoff chances with either scenario? And if that's the case, is there something to be said with Lamar Jackson getting some really valuable experience here that you hope is going to help you in 2019, 2020, and beyond? So there are so many layers to this. We've talked about this so much over the last couple weeks, and I think we'll continue to talk about that. But in the meantime, They won a football game on Sunday, and even though they're 5-5, when all the tiebreakers shake out, they're currently the number 6 seed in the AFC. So from that standpoint, you do want to be more focused on the present. But again, until Flacco is healthy and ready to play again, you roll with Jackson. And again, I'm enticed. I'm really intrigued to see more coming presumably Sunday against the Raiders.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter, and Luke at WNST.net. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at King Discount Liquors, lottery, beer, booze, and the best prices in Baltimore. Get on out to Rosedale and give the King a ring. It's Thanksgiving week, a little pumpkin spice. I've seen some eggnog up on the counter. Even have Fisher's popcorn out of King Discount Liquors. Get to Rosedale, give the King a ring. Johnny Bev and the King All-Stars will make sure you know your Gewürztraminer from your Chardonnays here this week while you're pairing up your turkey. Also, Fremont Mortgage. Don't be a turkey. Don't make a 30-year mistake by choosing the wrong lender. If you're in the market in 2019 to buy or sell, or whether you're just thinking about it, you need our friends Carl Delmont and Fremont Mortgage. They're going to be sponsoring our swabbings for the Bone Marrow Registry. Bringing Matt Skur and Alex Lewis out next week, CJ Mosley a little later on in the month. You're going to find all of those out at WNST.net on our social media. All of it brought to you by Fremont Mortgage. Also, our friends at Cole Roofing and Pfister Energy, of course, doing our community and charity series we do on Thursdays. If you have an event coming up in 2019, it can be a golf event, a 5K, a 10K, a run, a dinner, a bull roast, whatever it is. If you're raising money for a good cause, if you got a good story to tell, we want to tell your story. Throw me an email, nasty@WNST.net. All of it brought to you by Cole Roofing. And Billy Cole will be here to provide, I don't know, therapy or not on Wednesday, but we're going to get after it because it's a happy week. The Ravens have won. Luke is happy. Luke is chasing the Orioles around this week, getting down to the warehouse, and maybe they might only lose 114 next year, Luke. I'm not sure. But we're in progress here with this Lamar Jackson thing. And one of the things that I think we should all look at over the next 3 to 5 years, if this kid's going to be our quarterback, and he's not a Kyle Bowler, and he's not a Chris Redman, and he's not a guy that we're looking to replace in the 2020 draft, let's say, right? Because we're 3-13 next year without Joe Flacco and without C.J. Mosley and without Weddle and Yond and all these things we've talked about, that if the rebuild begins for real next year, the one thing I would say for him running around that does not bode well for him, and it may bode well for 15 yards every now and again, is when you see Joe Flacco running, and unless you're Kiko Alonso, right, you're not really looking to take his head off because he's looking to sort of hook slide and get out of the way. They're looking for you looking to kill the quarterback and give him a Jim McMahon hit or give him a kill shot or give him a Steve Young, forearm. The days of any of that, all that's over with for a quarterback that Terry Bradshaw had to worry about that, right? And didn't have to worry about instant replay and what Pete Rozelle might think and what the CTE police are going to get on him about and all of that. Lamar Jackson's not going to earn that right, because of his speed, because he can sort of fake down and get back up and move around, and he's going to get kill shot every time, I think. And I don't think, if the $250,000 fine comes your way because you hit him too hard, so be it. But he's running at gazelle speed, and the only way to hit him is to hit him at full speed. And that really concerns me for him. It really does. I know the rules are going to say one other thing, but he's going to get annihilated, dude. This is a fast game, and he's a fast player, and no one's going to give him the benefit of the doubt or think he's going to slide.
Oh, but that said, when you leave the pocket, you're not a quarterback anymore. I mean, you're not. So you have one course, or basically two courses of action. You can either take big hits, and look, that's not to say that means anyone's going to have license to just lead with their helmet and helmet-to-helmet hits because, helmet-led hits are supposed to be out of the game anyway, which I think it's funny that rule was such a big point of discussion, and how many times have we talked about that since the season started? This might be the first time we've talked about it, but you're either going to take hits or you need to slide or get out of bounds, and I'll kind of put those two together as far as your alternatives. He needs to learn how to be judicious in terms of when he's going to take hits. If it's the fourth quarter and you need a game-winning drive, or you're behind, or it's a playoff game, or it's the month of December, sure, naturally you're going to put your body at a little more risk because there's a bigger reward in terms of winning an important game or scoring an important touchdown. But you're absolutely right. You can love what you see from him as a runner, but if he's going to be running as frequently as he did on Sunday, and even if it's not that frequent, even if it's 10 to 15 times over the course of a game, which I think is realistic. Go back and look at Michael Vick and how he played, but he's got to learn how to protect himself a little bit more because teams are going to be, they're going to be gunning for him. And it doesn't mean it's going to be dirty, but they're going to be looking to hit him hard. I mean, that's just the reality. The Ravens did the same thing to Robert Griffin III when he was a rookie. And remember, Haloti Ngata hurt his knee initially, and then that was kind of the beginning of the end for RG3 being the sensation that was going to take over the league and be an absolute star. So there's absolutely a middle ground that Jackson will need to find, and we talked about this in the preseason, how many hits he took. If it's
and they're needless then. I was there the night of Dallas Thomas broke Michael Vick in two, and,
right.
In August, and you thought you didn't want Flacco running around in August, right? I mean, because he might take an errant sack or someone might get after his knee or his ankle or whatever under a pile, or you might trip over James Hurst for crying out loud. I don't know, man. I don't think you feel like it's Christmas and you need to treat them all like ornaments in in crepe paper. But my goodness, I mean, I do worry. I do think like this is not a sustainable thing long term. For him, for his size, for the way he's going to get hit, for the amount of yards. I did see him try to get out of bounds a couple of times. That's good to see, right? But I don't think that's his instinct, right? That wasn't his instinct in Pompano Beach or at Louisville.
Yeah, but I don't think that's unique to him. I think most quarterbacks that play with that kind of style through high school, through college.
How many times have they made a guy missing run off 30 yards, right? Like they've done that all the time.
But there is an adjustment, and any great quarterback, any quarterback that's going to be worth their salt at the NFL level has to adjust. I mean, no one comes in and just sets the league on fire from day one and never has to adjust, never has growing pains, never has an injury. So there's going to be that adjustment period, and that becomes kind of the defining moment or moments of whether a guy's going to be a long-term viable franchise quarterback, or whether it's going to be a case where the Ravens and Jackson have a few years where it's really fun and it's really innovative, and kids are loving to play with him in video games, and the same kind of Michael Vick kind of thing. Now, Vick ended up playing much longer. Now, the middle of his career, we understand what happened to him off the field, but he kind of had a renaissance after that, and why? He became more effective from the pocket. Never that he became great, but he became more viable as a passer. And then you couple that with the athleticism, and that's when you have something that can be special. That's when you have something that might be able to be sustained for a longer period of time, and might be something that can help you win, and win big, and have fun in the process of doing it. I think what we saw Sunday was a lot of fun. In terms of just taking it for what it was, seeing a quarter. I mean, how many times do you see a quarterback run for over 100 yards? It's rare. It's very rare. So that's fun. But again,
it won't be rare around here. You better do it again next week, right?
Sure. But that's where you get to the point where you say, okay, this is a lot of fun, but if you're going to be running the ball upwards of 20 times, how many hits are you taking? How risky is that going to be? What's your passing game looking like? How's that going to work against better defenses than they saw Sunday, or that they're going to see this Sunday against Oakland? Those are questions that have to be determined. Those are questions that have to be answered, and those are questions that you've got to figure out a little more balance, which I think he knows, and I think this coaching staff or whoever is going to be coaching him in the future, assuming there are changes at the end of the season, that they understand that, and that's going to be the determining factor as far as whether this is just a fun little period of time, or he's going to be the real deal for the long haul, and he's going to be the Ravens franchise quarterback for the next decade, and giving them a chance to win another Super Bowl. So, again, I don't want to judge Sunday as any more than one game. In the same way that if he played outstanding and threw for 300 yards, I would say I'm not expecting that every single week. In the same way that what we ended up seeing, him running for 117 yards and the team running for 265 total, it was against a really bad defense, and they exploited a very obvious weakness on that Bengals defense, considering they were giving up 5 yards per carry. So you take it for what it is, and as I said, it was good enough that I want to see more under the current circumstances that Joe Flacco's not healthy. Once Flacco's healthy, we'll come up for air and see exactly what this offense is looking like at that point, whether that's next week, 2 weeks from now, whatever the case. But if we see growth and Jackson looks better in his second start from his first start, and it's not a regression, which inevitably you're going to have those growing pains with a rookie quarterback as well, then I think it's a way more interesting discussion the rest of the year in terms of what's best for the Ravens now and really what's best for the Ravens in the big picture. If you think Lamar Jackson, if you think it's close between him and Flacco just because it's a different style of offense and it's given defenses nightmares preparing for him and the Ravens are running the ball really well and he's making just enough plays, makes more plays in the passing game, let's say, than he did Sunday, then I think there's a more intriguing argument for both short-term and certainly the long-term. But, again, until we see that, I'm not ready to sit here and just say that Joe Flacco's made his last start as a Baltimore Raven.
You might want him in Kansas City 3 weeks from now, bro. Like, you might need him in Kansas City, right?
Right. So I think it would be premature to bury him, but at the same time, I saw enough from Lamar Jackson on Sunday that let's see how this goes. Until Joe's healthy again, you roll with Jackson and then evaluate and see where you are as an offense, see where you are as a football team.
He is Luke Jones. He is Baltimore Luke out on Twitter and Luke at WNST.net. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by our friends at Strategic Factory. They make stuff like these beautiful blue koozies they gave me on the way into the stadium, as well as hats and shirts and marketing and strategy and promotional goods of all kinds. Keith's going to be joining us here on the air this week. We'll be telling you more about Strategic Factory. You can find them out in Owings Mills or at strategicfactory.com. Also brought to you by our friends at Costas Inn. If you're feeling crabby here as the weather changes and it gets dark at 5 o'clock every day, they still got crabs down at Costas Inn. Good enough for the Today Show and my mom and my wife and my son. We all meet over there all the time. I got to get over there, get me a bowl of crab soup sometime soon, see Nick and Pete and grab some crab. I think I'm heading out there next week for some crabs. Costas Inn, the legend continues. Also brought to you by our friends at the Model Lyric. I got the band members from Kansas on. You can go see them play Dust in the Wind and the entire Point of No Return album this week at the Model Lyric. Learn more at model-lyric.com. There's always magic at the Model Lyric, including Mike Love and the Beach Boys coming next week, the Charlie Brown Christmas Show on December 9th, John Mellencamp on February 20th, which is altering my February plans because I can't miss Mellencamp at the Model Lyric. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net. Everything we do can be found out in the buyatoyota.com audio vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world. The kids call it podcasting. You can download, listen to what you want, when you want, where you want. It is the buyatoyota.com audio vault. I'm on Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Snapchat and Instagram and streaming live on our Facebook as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. We are going to have big time back end on the all things Orioles this week. And Mike Elias going to be talking to a lot of really brilliant folks in and around baseball and in and around sabermetrics and analytics and who these cats are. And we've learned how to pronounce Sig Mejdal. That's pronounced Sig Mejdal. He's the new genius in town. So we're looking forward to learning and knowing, and Luke will be doing that as well as Owings Mills, as well as your turkey and your cranberry. I hope everybody has a great Thanksgiving here this week. We're going to have full coverage and plenty going on, including a near miss by the Terps over Ohio State last weekend. He is Luke. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.